Yo, what is up, guys? Um, so I kind of just woke up, I'd say like, I don't know, like 30 minutes ago. It's 8:20 in the morning, and I wanted to make a video. Honestly, I didn't even really have like an idea for what I wanted to make a video on. I kind of just wanted to make one. And I was thinking about the game, right, as I do occasionally, because, I feel like, and I'm just gonna say this, this video doesn't really have like, I mean, it has like a very general idea of what I want to make it, but it's not gonna be like a cohesive, coherent video. I'm kind of just going to be rambling about the game for, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 minutes maybe longer, maybe less. I don't know. But you got to hit at least 10-minute mark for the ads, right? But anyways, yeah, so just throwing out this is not going to be like a very cohesive video for anyone wondering. I'm just going to be talking a lot. So, I was just thinking about the game, and in my recent streams, I've had a lot of people, like ask me, like, my thoughts on like how's the game doing, what's the future of the game looking like, and honestly speaking, I'm not really sure, right? Like, because the thing is, if you look at the player base, like let's look at the players right now. You see, like, 7K or 7.7 in dungeons, 6K online. Like, those are pretty good numbers. That's almost 14K. You consider the game wipes in what, a week and 1 day. 14,000 players for the game to be wiping in a week and a day is pretty solid numbers. And like I said, it is 8:20 in the morning, so most of those aren't NA players. It's like the Asian players or the EU players, but still, it's a pretty consistent number. It goes down a little bit in the afternoon because I think a lot of the American players, which would be on 6 to 12 hours from now, are less than the amount of people that would be on for the Asian and EU players. So like in the afternoon it goes down to like maybe like 10K or something. But still, like it's relatively solid numbers. And then but the big thing is you're looking forward to next wipe, right? Because I would say the thing is, like, just off the bat, I will say this. Dark and Darker is one of my favorite games of all time. I know I bitch about it a lot. I know I complain about a lot of things, but that's because I really want the game to be good. But I think Dark and Darker is truly one of the greatest concepts for a game of all time. Before this game came out, there was really nothing like it. I think there was some game, the Expedition Agartha, but I think that maybe came out after the first playtests. But like, yeah, like I was saying, like Dark and Darker, there's really nothing else like it out there on the market. And I think because of that, unless something comes out to replace it, think like we had Dungeonborn, we had Greed is Good, both of those were flops. No surprise there, truthfully. But unless something comes out that's like really big and it's really well funded and really well made, I just don't ever really see Dark and Darker dying. Just because, like I said, there's nothing that's gonna replace it, right? Like no matter how bad a game gets, if you have people that want to play that style of game and there's nothing out there to replace it, they're always going to be playing it to some extent because you have no alternative. But with that being said, looking forward to the next wipe. Um, the thing is like I don't even think Dark and Darker. Like a lot of people will be like, will look at like a lower player count and be like, oh, it's a niche game. It's like a hardcore game. It's not for everybody. That's why the player count's low. And I just fundamentally don't think that's the case, right? Because just because a game is quote unquote hardcore or whatever you want to call it or more difficult, right? That doesn't mean people aren't going to want to play it. I know they're not the same game, but look at Path of Exile 2 recently. That game came out and a lot of people, especially like Path of Exile players, looked at it and like, yeah, this game is like, this game is more challenging than the first one by a pretty large margin. And I wouldn't even say Path of Exile is like a mainstream game. Like, yeah, it had a lot of players, but the thing is, it's definitely like for your average gamer, it's more niche than anything. And I mean, I would say probably Dark and Darker is like more niche than that, but the point behind it is difficulty isn't what's stopping people from playing the game in my mind. I've thought about it a lot. Like I said, I really don't think that's what it is. I don't think it's people play Dark and Darker and they're like, wow, this game's really hard. It's really hard to get into. I don't want to play it because I just like, yeah, I'm not saying there's no one that says that. And there's no one that like doesn't play because the game's difficult, but I don't think that's what the majority of people are playing. But because a lot of people they'll always look at it and be like, oh, well, the new player experience is horrible. It's really hard to get into the game. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. It is so much easier to get into this game right now than it has ever been in the past. Think of like back during playtest 4, playtest 5, early access release. Trying to get into the game back then as a new player was so much more difficult. You had none of the things you do now. You had like back then stats and gear and characters just in general were way more broken. There was way more bullshit that you could just die to without ever having logic behind it. There was no regulation of gear. You could queue normals and queue into people in full bis. There was just none of that. Now we have so many more things. You have Squire kits, you have like under 24 gear score normals, you have all of these other things that have been put in place to allow players to learn the game. And even coming next wipe, they've said there's like some sort of tutorial dungeon, which not that I think is super important, but yeah, like I think there are plenty of measures in place to help people learn the game. So then the question is, it begs the question, why do people leave? Why do people stop playing the game? And what it really, really just comes down to is the updates, right? I mean, I don't think like a lot of people look at me and they'll say I'm complaining or I'm crying, whatever. But and hell, you can even call it a pessimistic outlook. But genuinely speaking, you could go and look back through the updates over, the months and the year that this game has been out, and you could just like look from update to update to update. And I would say, outside of a few bug fixes here and there, which they usually do every patch, most of the updates are just picking up the bar, moving it somewhere else for a number, picking that bar up, moving it back and forth, back and forth. Or that means that's like, your average patch. Or they make some giant change in the middle of the season that was not tested that changes the game so drastically that whether it's a good or bad change, usually it affects players negatively no matter how good it might be overall. Think just recently when we had hotfix 68 or 69, I think it was, where they changed the gear. And that's not the first time they've done something like this. They've done stuff like this on numerous occasions. Think of multiclassing. There are these giant patches that they make that change the game that pretty much say, okay, everything you've done prior to this moment, we're just kind of gonna, we're not entirely going to get rid of, but we are gonna make it a lot worse because a lot of people's gear after those patches, like say like patch 69 came out, they made all the gear the same. Then they changed roles, got rid of roles, and all that stuff like they've done in the past. Because like in the past, whenever they've gotten rid of stats, they got rid of legacy items. They just re-rolled the items, so items that were really good became really really bad. And it's like, okay, if I have stockpiled all these items that were considered the best at the time, like let's say I had 100,000 gold, right? And I spent all my gold on gear, which isn't even a bad thing to do. Like when people ask me, that's what I normally recommend. I'm like, hey, just spend your gold on gear. Gear always holds value. Well, that's not true. Whenever they decide to say, okay, we're getting rid of all X, Y, and Z, and that was the best thing before. So now all your gear that you put all your gold to just got re-rolled, and it just became maybe some of it's better, but now maybe some of it's horrible, which generally speaking is more likely than not. But a really really good example of this, like I said, patch 69 or 69.2 or 1 or whatever it was, they got rid of some extra stats. They got rid of buff duration, debuff duration, and additional, or I think it was additional memory capacity and memory capacity bonus. And like I mentioned this back then, but something really, really big for bards is memory capacity. And added mem cap or memory capacity bonus was usually the stat you go for on like drums and stuff. So a lot of bard players immediately after the patch, they had to rebuild their entire kits because this very, very crucial stat to their build had got removed. And so their ability to play their songs and stuff was completely taken away. Think of this as being like, imagine you're a wizard player and tomorrow they drop a patch that says, okay, instead of knowledge giving one memory capacity, each point, like you have to have three knowledge for every 1 point of mem cap, right? Like, as for most people, it would probably screw over your build because you wouldn't be able to use all the spells you were before. I mean, I don't know how much they actually build, but generally speaking, or even like $5 is one mem cap, things like that. And that was exactly how it was for Bard. So after the patch, they're like, okay, like all of my kits are just completely screwed over now because I just don't have the I don't have the I can't use this anymore. And then so they rebuilt all their kits to get this like to get the stat back. And see there lies one problem. It's like for the higher tier players that have the gold and the funds to do this, right? It's like whatever, you can do this perfectly fine. Like it's kind of annoying that you have to do it, but you can afford it. Now take like your more casual player, and like let's say they built one really good kit or two really good kits and they get on and the kit's just completely destroyed because they no longer have the ability to do this, right? And it's not like this like a minor thing either. Like I said, wizard's a great example. If you get on and you have a 10 spell kit and you can't use 4 or 5 of those spells, you like, okay, well I could throw on intense focus or I could throw on meditation or whatever else you put on, or arcane shield. Bards can't even do that. They don't really have good alternatives for their skills. They're like, okay, well I have to get this, right? Like I have to have these other 5 songs. And like I said, so if you're more of a casual player, you can't just afford to rebuild your entire kit over the whims of the devs deciding to like get rid of an entire stat. And then, let's say somehow, you sell the pieces that you don't need, you buy back, you buy the pieces you do need, and then they immediately come back out and like, whoopsie guys, okay, we're changing it all back, the stats are back in the game, and they just screw you over again, right? And this like back and forth, this tug and pull, this is what is making a lot of players leave the game. Like I said, you can look at it in the past. Whenever they put out these massive updates and they pretty much immediately like go back and retcon it and say like, "Oh, actually no, that's not it. That's not in the game anymore. It's completely gone." You always have a giant drop of players. I think multiclassing is one of the biggest um showcases of it is so originally, if you guys don't know, because multiclassing's been like I think what 6 months ago now or something, maybe even longer. So originally, the wipe of multiclassing, what we heard was, okay, they told us like, all right, guys, this upcoming wipe is going to be about multiclassing. Originally, multiclassing was never supposed to be a thing. That was never what it was. It was supposed to be some sort of talent tree that if you look at like really old Dark and Darker videos, you can see sometimes there was a talent tree that was going to be here, and everybody thought it was what it was. We're like, nah, we're going to do multiclassing. And they get to the point they're like, okay, next wipe is going to be all about testing multiclassing. It's the multiclassing wipe. That's what it's going to be. The wipe comes out and we get nothing. Like, so Druid was supposed to come out that wipe. We didn't get it. Or actually was yeah. I think Druid is supposed to come out. Yeah, that's what it is. Druid is supposed to come out and multiclassing is supposed to come out on the start of the wipe. We didn't get either of them. So we started the wipe with literally nothing new added to the game, and that automatically pushes people away, right? Like, segueing this a little bit. But the start of the wipe is your biggest influx of players. So you have all of these people coming back to see what's new. Why should I play this game again, right? Things like Diablo or Path of Exile, which I think are great examples, have new leagues that add a new mechanic to play over. So people come back, they play that for a while, and then they quit because that's like normal. If you get a month out of your casual players, or even 2 months out of a 3 month wipe, like that is a big success. You don't expect them to play the full 3 month wipe. You try to bring them back for as much time as you can, and then get ready for the next one. That's how these things go. But whenever these players come back, because that's exactly what happened, they came back, they're like, oh, cool, what's new? I want to play this game again. What is there to do? And the game's the exact same as it was in the past. It's like players just like, okay, cool, I'm not playing. Like I have no reason to, right? There's just like, why should I play this when there's nothing here? Like like everything I'm doing right now, I could have done in the past. And right now, I mean, a lot of people, I mean, some people would argue like there's not a lot of games out, so it's not a like very competitive market. But I would differ. I would beg to differ. I think they need a reason to play your game because if not, they're just going to go play something else. Because at any point, there's always going to be another game to play. I mean, yeah, sure, some people may be so bored that they'll play it anyways, but they're not going to play for an extended period of time. If you don't have some hook to bring them back in, yeah, they might play it for a couple days, but eventually they're just going to get bored because they did everything they're doing again. They did everything they're doing then. They did 3 months ago during last wipe. They're not going to want to do the same quests for the same items, and fight the same players and the same comps and on the same maps and all that stuff with the same classes. You're not going to want to do that over and over and over. There's a limit to how much your casual player or your non-diehard fans are going to want to do that. So, like I was saying, the multi-classing. So the wipe released, we got nothing for about a month, maybe a little more, and then multi-classing finally released. And the problem with it was a really, really bad system. So if you guys don't know how multiclassing was on release, originally, so you had to level all your characters. So okay, so how it worked was you had to level a character to I believe it was 30. It was either level 20 or level 30. You leveled it to that level, and then all of your other characters could use perks from that class. So like I would level my fighter to 30, and then on my warlock, I could roll tokens on my fighter. However, that was just the bare minimum to unlock it. Then the class you actually wanted to roll the perks and skills on had to be leveled up, I would say, to somewhere around level 100 just to have a decent chance. Because you got like, you started getting tokens at like level 20 or 30, and then you get like one every level. But like, it was like, you could get like a max of 13, and the maximum, and you got like the last one at like level like 200 or something. Something ridiculous. Because after level 100, it became like really infrequent. But anyways, you could end up getting 13 tokens max, and let's just say before they finally changed it, I don't think anyone had 13 tokens. I had a lot at like 9, and I was playing the game like nonstop back then. And my fighter was like level like 100, like 50 or something. But anyways, yeah, so you did this, and then the problem with it was past that was you had to then roll the token. So like, let's go look at fighter, right? So you would roll you would roll and you would roll three different things. You got to choose one. The problem was, let's if you were a spellcaster, it's even worse. But the problem was you were rolling and you like let's say I wanted just barricade, right? I had to roll this one perk out of every single thing that you see here. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. 21 things here. And yes, you do have you're rolling three things every single time, so the odds are a little bit higher. But on average, this is still going to take me, 6 pulls to get it. I mean, get like 5 or 6, give or take, without replacement stuff. But this is still going to take me, on average, half of my perks or skills to get it. So then the problem was re-rolling. Because originally, you could only re-roll once every week. You'd go to the fortune teller, she'd have a service, and you could re-roll them once every week. And the problem with it was there were certain combinations of multiclassing that were so broken, you pretty much couldn't play without them. For certain classes, or if you did and you fought people that were using them, you just kind of lost. Protection from Evil Warlock was a really, really good example of this. Or something like Weapon Mastery Barbarian, or just Robust, Iron Will, Anti-Magic. All these things became must-haves, and they were almost impossible to actually get. So then the issue arose was you pretty much had to, because the thing is, they also made leveling way harder back then, by the way. So like right now, you could go level 1 to 20, I'd say in 2-3 hours tops without questing. Back then, from level 1 to 20, it probably took you somewhere around 8 to 10 hours. And that was like if you were like grinding. Maybe I'm being a little bit crazy about these numbers, but I'm pretty sure it was something like ridiculous. It was a lot more than it is now. A lot. But so you had this system that didn't even come out until a month after release. And then you made it so your players had to invest, I'd say anywhere between 30 to 50 hours to actually experience it a little bit. And then you could only reroll once a week if you got bad rolls. And you could use the logic of, oh, well, you should play, like they wanted you to just like play with whatever you got. Well, that's not really realistic, right? That's like, imagine you just have to randomize your perks and play with what you get. Like, yeah, you can do it to some extent, but if you get unlucky, you're just at a disadvantage. Or worst case scenario, you just don't use it and they're not even using the system they implemented the whole wipe to be about, right? It was like so they wanted this thing to be tested, but they tested it poorly, which is just kind of the case for Iron Mace in general. And this is, and I'm sure a lot of you are like, why is he bringing up something that's like 9 months old or 6 months old or whatever at this point? And the reason I want to bring it up is the way that they tend to implement things just makes it so people can't actually test them. Look at arenas. Even arenas was a good example. Whenever they finally added them, it was only minted gear to start, right? So this, new cool thing that you would want to use to get people to try it and test out just is immediately cut off from all of your casual players, all of the new players that might want to come back to the game to play it because they have to then invest, 10, 20, 30 hours at the bare minimum to even try to do it. And Iron Mace has done this so many times. Multiclassing and Arena are both really, really good examples. Like I said, and eventually they did change multiclassing, so it's like, okay, well, you can reroll faster, the leveling's faster, the perks and skills are faster. But this is already a month after multiclassing had been out and, pretty much screwed a bunch of people over. And you could, like I said, you could look back then on like I guess it wasn't on Steam yet, I don't think actually, but you could like look back then and like the player drop off was significant. Like there was already a bunch of people that stopped playing at the beginning of the wipe because there was nothing new. Some people came back from multiclassing, realized, oh wait, I'm not investing 50 hours of my life to try this. They quit again. Multiclassing was brought back and made it easier for them, so a lot of people started trying it again, and they removed it, and then a lot of people quit again because the whole point of the wipe was multiclassing and it was done poorly, and then it was removed from the game. So a lot of people were just like, okay, cool, we just don't want to play anymore. Like there's just the whole point of this wipe was this. You added it, made it almost unplayable for almost all of your players, and then you took it away from us after actually making it playable. And not to say they should have kept it. I mean, I think removing it overall was a good idea because I don't think multiclassing was good for the game. I don't think it was healthy, and more importantly, I don't think it was fun. And I think that's where like the main issue of this game lies is they are always trying to find what is fun but what is good for the game because those two things like they have to coincide, right? Like you balance, like a lot of people talk about balance, right? Balance is good to a certain extent. It's like you don't want things to be certain, like you don't want to have like one thing that's like completely dominating everything. Because then no matter how fun it may be, you are either forcing everybody to play that thing whether they find it fun or not, or they play other things and they lose to that thing and they don't enjoy the game. So you have the options of you have to make everything, fun without making one thing dominate everything else. And there are a lot of ways to do this. You can make everything bounce, you can make everything broken, you can do whatever. But Iron Mace has always been struggling with this. So in the balance patches, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of the time what you see is they're just changing numbers back and forth, left to right, up and down, side to side. And I think this is most recently shown by Panther, the Panther changes that I complain a lot about. They've literally, the exact changes that we had in that patch were done. I looked and it was like somewhere around, I don't know, 7 months ago or something, or 5 months ago. Or I guess not that long. It was last wipe. They literally made the exact changes. They changed the damage, they changed the HP scaling, and then about a week to 2 weeks later, they nerfed it right back because it became incredibly broken. And you could be like, oh, well, now it's not the exact same because everybody lost 15 flat HP and all that stuff, whatever. But it's still like effectively, it is the same change. And that's not the only one they've done that's like that. That is the case for most things. Um, their history of balance, usually how it goes, is X thing is underperforming. We will give X, one, two, three small buffs. It is still underperforming. We now give it a large buff. And with, the one, two, three small buffs plus the large buff, it is now ridiculous. This was shown, I think, pretty hard in the cleric nerf. It was kind of done in reverse. Whenever they nerfed melee cleric, whenever double cleric bard was meta, I think it was last wipe or the wipe before that. I'm not sure anymore. It's been so long, but they nerfed like a couple things, but then they finally nerfed something big, so it pretty much killed the entire playstyle. The playstyle just became completely irrelevant. And that's, like I said, that is what they do normally. Where normally it's with buffs, but they'll like, okay, small buff, small buff, small buff, still not working, big buff, and now the big buff added with the three small things before made this thing super ridiculous. And then usually they'll over nerf it, which is what we saw with Demon Warlock, because I don't know if you guys remember, originally Demon Warlock couldn't use weapons, and they gave it weapons. So like, oh, no one's playing this, let's give it weapons, right? And when they did, it became incredibly broken. And then to compensate for giving it weapons and making it broken, they just gutted it right after that. They made the scaling like horrible. They made the HP burn like ridiculous. They nerfed the plus 10 all it used to get. So they changed what was a very unique and interesting playstyle to one that was just pretty much very, very cookie cutter frontline that had no unique elements to it whatsoever. But anyways, that's getting a little bit off topic. I don't really want to talk about balance here. So back to like the original point of going forward into next wipe. What do they need to do to keep players? Because the thing is, I mean, I'd like just to show you guys like where I'm at like right now with like how the game is. I want to pull this up really quick. This right here. So this is Dark and Darker on Twitch right now. I mean, like I said, it is 8:45 in the morning, but 906 viewers. And the thing is about this is like, wait, how do I get off of this? Like, look at this. This is like with some of the bigger streamers streaming too, right? You have Jay, you have Promos, you have Solar Bear. These are like, I mean, not that Solar Bear is like one of the big ones. I mean, he like, he's like a demon hour time. But Jay literally is like the biggest streamer for Dark and Darker, period. And he has 368 viewers right now. Promos, another really, really big streamer, 67 viewers. And like I said, yes, it's like 9 a.m. However, this is not, this is not like the numbers you would expect. And the problem is, it's that people just, and this isn't like I said, this isn't even like a dead game thing. This like I said, look at the player base. Player base is still fine. Like this is still a lot of players. It's like 14,000 players. That is good. So then the problem is like where's the viewership, right? And the issue is how they've changed the game. It just makes people not very interested in watching it. I think this is coming from like a content creator point of view. Like I mean the thing is I personally I don't really like consume Dark and Darker media like YouTube videos, Twitch or anything. I very very rarely watch them. Every now I'll pop in one of my friends' streams and chill for a minute, just like talk to them or whatever and watch. But like very very rarely. However, the addition of three-layer maps made the viewing experience so much worse. Because it used to be, you would spawn on crypts and, everybody would fight, or even ruins of the two-layer or goblin kids or whatever. You would fight, everybody would, like, you have a good time, and then you would go down to hell, excuse me, or whatever. Mm. Oh, God. I was like gonna like hiccup or something there, but I didn't have to. But anyways, you get onto hell, and people could like, and then it wasn't completely boring because it was like, oh, boss fight, boss loot, pile loot. Did they get anything cool? It was still like entertaining to some experience, because it was like you had the really nice medium of crazy PvP first floor, chill bossing, looting second floor, like the wind down, and you had a nice cycle going on there. But now with the 3 layer in between, you have ruins fighting, and assuming they go down, right? Boring crypts where nothing happens, and then bossing. And most people like that's you're getting 30 minutes of PvE effectively to every what 13, 15 minutes of PvP, which is usually not even that much. It's usually less. It's like 5 minutes really, because most of it's just walking around. But it's like the problem is it's that the system of the game is just not fun. And the thing is, it's not even just like a Twitch thing. It's not even like you're not like it's not even just like, oh, content creator crying, he's getting no viewers, right? It's not even that. It's not like that fun from a player perspective either. Imagine you're playing the game and it's like, okay, I'm gonna go down. Like, well, yeah, like I can loot, right? Like I can go loot all the items, but that's still like not fun. Like you do it because it's there, but you don't like go into the dungeon like, oh boy, I can't wait to loot some chests and crypts. This is gonna be really fun. It's like, no, that's just not what it is. It's just not very entertaining. And the thing is, with the buffs to loot, I don't need all of these floors to loot on. Like you could literally, go from you could have 2 floors. You could do ruins to hell, skip crypts entirely. I don't think it'd be a horrible idea, but whatever. Let's just assume, and you could just loot entirely of hell, and that is way more loot than you need, especially even as 3 players. There's so much loot now. Every other chest is legendaries, uniques, all of this stuff that there's just so much of. And I know that going forward into the next wipe, they've mentioned that what they want to do is they're gonna make it so it's kind of like a continuous dungeon where you can go to any floor you want at any time. And I don't know how I feel about that. I really don't. I think what it's gonna end up doing is you're just gonna have probably like people sitting in queue, like trying to go to floors, and just no one's gonna be there, and they're gonna end up on a bunch of dead floors. But the thing is that I really want to get at is I think this next wipe is really, really big. And what they have to do is like completely ignoring new things they have to add or whatever, because I think they've already they've already mentioned like we're very, very limited things, which is like another problem that I think is the next thing they've like mentioned for like this upcoming wipe. Like the big thing, the big thing we're getting is sorcerer, right? So as a baseline, sorcerer, they've said it's going to be released on the wipe. It has to be. If sorcerer is not released on the wipe, this wipe is going to be very, very bad, just to say that. Other than that, one of the things with gem socketing that helps you get better gear. And my problem with this is like, well, for me, like a sweat that plays the game a ton, that's really cool. For your casual player, not really. That's not super interesting to them. That's not gonna bring players in to play this game. At least, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't really think so. And other than like them adding new and cool content that people want to play, and like I said, I don't think a continuous dungeon does that. I don't like. I really, really don't like that idea for a multitude of reasons. But anyways, not talking about that right now in this video. Um, Iron Mace just has to change. They have to be better than they have been in the past. Because truthfully speaking, I've said it in a lot of videos. I've said it in a lot of really tilted and annoyed moments that I think the devs are horrible and they all should be fired and they don't deserve jobs. But if they want this game to survive, they have got to be better. Because the thing is, you know, I know there's a lot of excuses that they've flung around where, oh, they're legal battles and everything. They can't do with it everything they want to, or everything's slower. And like, okay, cool. I'm sure that is true to some extent. However, that is not the case for a lot of things. A lot of the thing is, people don't get mad at them most of the time for what they don't do. They get mad at them for the things they have done or they are doing. That is the bigger problem. It's like, you guys say this, but then the things you actually have the ability to influence, have the ability to do, completely ignoring the court case, are horrible. You know, generally speaking. Not that all of them are, but I'd say a vast majority of them are pretty fucking bad for what the things they can actually do. So like I said, they just have to be better. They need to be more like aware of the changes they're making of like their gameplay. They need to do things that people actually want to happen. They need to make if they want to do balance, they need to do meaningful balance. They don't need to just change a character from A and B or from A to B back to A. That is not doing anything for anyone. You are just dragging your players around. They have to realize that these patches they are putting out that is drastically changing the game in the middle of the wipe to then immediately, get rid of it and just like I said, drag your players around again, are running their player base off. That is happening. And The big thing for a long time, and it was used as an excuse, right, was Steam release. Steam release is going to fix the population problem. The problem with everything is they don't have players. They have more players. They could test things they wanted. They could do more things. Steam release is going to fix it. Cat's out of the bag, right? Steam release has already happened. We have the player numbers. We've had them. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, the game's dead. Like, it lost 70,000 players. I never expected to keep that. 50,000 definitely could have. Like, we definitely should have 50K players on White minimum. I would say that just as a fact. For how good this game is, or, the concept is, it should definitely be 50K players on White. But it's just not going to be like that, right? It's probably not. However, they don't have a fallback anymore. Like I said, the Steam release was the big thing for them. It's like they could mess up the game as much as they want, and then whenever they say, and then when it comes up in Steam, a lot of people are going to come out and try the game. A lot of people are. But like I said, that is done. You don't have any big release again that's going to drag in a huge influx of players. So every time you put out these patches that are running off, tens to hundreds of players, that is a very, very big loss this game is going to feel. It might not feel it immediately, but after they do it 10 times and they lost, 5,000 players, you're going to start feeling that. The lobbies are starting to being dead. And with the changes they're making to how the lobbies work, they need players more than ever. So I don't know if they have something big planned, to bring in more players. I don't know what they could have. But yeah, I don't know what they're going to do. But the game definitely will need more players with the things they're changing about it. But anyways, I don't even remember what I was talking about now, honestly. Oh, yeah, no, I do. The thing is, like I said, they have to be more aware of the things they're doing. They have to make more meaningful changes to the game. Like I said, just taking a character from A to B back to A is not going to cut it. If you want this game to succeed long term, you have to do better. And the start of that needs to be, if you're going to make balance changes, make them good. Don't nerf the things that, or don't buff the things that are already good. Don't nerf the things, or don't buff the irrelevant things that aren't going to make them better. Like, I think a great example is Fighter. They have buffed spell reflection, I think, every single time for the last, 5 patches. And you know what? This skill is still horrible. And the reason behind it isn't the actual skill, it's just fundamentally how the game plays. And if they understood that, they would understand why this is not a good spell and why this will never be good. Just not to get into a tangent, but the thing is, I'm sure a lot of people look at this like, wow, this is really cool. The problem is, the moment you activate this, no one's going to shoot a spell at your shield, right? They're just going to lightning strike you. They're going to splash fireball you. They're going to do all of these other things that aren't actually going to go anywhere near your shield, that you have no chance to use this. So you're going to take this and it's just going to be completely useless. You might block one spell over it if you're lucky. However, that's all. You're just going to block one spell. It's probably going to go some random direction, do completely nothing, and then you're just down a skill that you could otherwise have something even remotely useful on. But instead of actually making a balance change that does something, they're just, like I said, they are buffing spell reflect. But it is what it is. And like I said, I don't want to sound too doomer about this. However, you can look around, I showed you on Twitch. You can look at other Dark and Darker streamers. You can ask them their thoughts going forward. But I think it's pretty common opinion that if certain things don't happen, this game's going to be pretty horrible. Because for a long time, it's the game's player base was primarily their diehard fans. But at some point, even those players are they're going to give up on the game, right? And I'm not saying I'm going to give up on the game anytime soon, because like I said, I love this game and I'm always going to play it. Even outside of, being a content creator, I love this game, right? It's super fun to me. I enjoy it so much. And like I said, there really is nothing out there like it. But I'm just going to be honest with you guys. If I have to go through one more wipe of Cleric being the most broken character in the game, I'm going to lose my fucking mind. That is just, that is what's going to happen. And the thing is that's really disheartening is hearing the devs talk about balance and them very, very clearly not having a clue what they're talking about is just upsetting. Because it's not only do you guys not play your game, you can't take 30 minutes out of your day to watch a Twitch stream to look. Because I'm going to be honest with you, if they go and watch anybody's arena games that is 2,000 plus ELO, you would see, and I guarantee you 30 minutes, most of the issues with this game, and specifically with Arena. You would see the strength of Cleric. You would see how strong Wizard is. You would see how strong Ranger is. You would see how disgusting the arenas are and how ranged heavy they are and how range beneficial they are. You would see all of these things that are very, very large issues that are turning players away slowly but surely that need to be fixed. But anyways, yeah, that's probably gonna wrap it up for me for now. Like I said, this is gonna be like just mostly a rambling video. I didn't really have like I had a general idea of what I wanted to make, but I just kind of wanted to like yap about it. But anyways, yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for me. Feel free to like leave your own thoughts and opinions down below. Hopefully this game gets fixed. Like I said, I truly do love this game, contrary to a lot of people think. I fucking love this game. It's super fun, and I really hope it does succeed, to some extent, except when I'm tilted, and then I hope it fails. But anyways, that is gonna wrap it up for me. Feel free to leave your thoughts and opinions down below. And as always, if you enjoyed, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace.